So this is the third lecture in chapter 3 or week 3. We're going to be talking about the endocrine system. So the endocrine system works together with the nervous system to act as a sort of communication system for the human body. Both the nervous and endocrine systems send messages everywhere inside the body. These messages are what allow your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe in air, and your mind to make decisions. Now, in the nervous system, signals travel very quickly, leading to instantaneous responses. However, within the endocrine system, signals move more slowly, but they last a bit longer. When you boil it down, the endocrine system is a network of glands that release hormones. Hormones are chemicals within the endocrine system that affect physiological activity. They're secreted by one tissue and conveyed to the bloodstream through another tissue. Hormones have high levels of specificity, which means they can only react with certain receptor sites in the body. So remember how we talked earlier about that lock and key analogy? Hormones are the same. Only a certain hormone, the lock, can create a certain response within your body's receptive tissue, the key. And there are as many as 50 different types of hormones in the human body. We're certainly not going to cover all of them today, but we will get a bit of an overview. So I want to show you this video, and for whatever reason I have to X out to be able to do that.
Our body is always in flux. When we are cold, our body shivers. When we are hot, our body sweats. Our body engages in these activities to keep our internal temperature constant. This is an example of homeostasis, which is defined as the ability of the body to maintain a constant internal state. One major way the body maintains homeostasis is through the endocrine system. The endocrine system is a system of glands that produce hormones to regulate and control bodily activities. The endocrine system controls a number of important functions throughout the body, including growth and development, metabolism, and homeostasis. There are many different hormones in the body, and each is responsible for different functions. Estradiol, testosterone, insulin, growth hormone, and epinephrine are just a few examples of hormones. Although they are involved in different functions of the endocrine system, hormones work in a similar manner. First, a gland detects a change in the body's internal environment. This gland then increases the secretion of hormones, which enter the bloodstream. Hormones travel through the blood and can have potential effects throughout the body. However, hormones will not act on every cell. Hormones activate target cells by binding to specific receptors on the inside or outside of the target cells. When a hormone binds to a receptor, the receptor sends a signal throughout the cell. Just like a megaphone amplifies the volume of a person's voice, a hormone's message is amplified inside the cell. This signal goes a long way. Just a few hormones can induce great change. Once hormones have succeeded in sending their message to their target cells, and in this case, homeostasis is achieved, the gland decreases the secretion of hormones. The mechanism by which the gland stops secreting hormones is called negative feedback. What exactly is negative feedback? Negative feedback allows a system to self-regulate a response or output. The following example may help explain. A house regulates temperature using negative feedback. When the thermostat detects a decrease in temperature, it sends a message to the furnace to produce heat. When the thermostat detects that the room temperature has returned to the correct level, it stops sending its message to the furnace. A furnace will turn on and off several times a day to keep the temperature relatively constant. Now let's look at a specific example of homeostasis using a hormone many of you may have already heard of, insulin. Let's say a person eats a meal. As the food is digested and glucose is absorbed into the bloodstream, blood glucose levels begin to rise. It is important for this glucose to be removed from the blood, otherwise it may cause damage to important organs such as the liver, brain, and kidneys. Thus, to maintain blood glucose levels, insulin is released from an endocrine gland, the pancreas. The pancreas senses increased blood glucose and releases insulin into the blood. Insulin travels through the blood and binds to receptors in muscles, fat tissue, and as shown here, the liver. Upon binding to receptors, insulin causes an increase in glucose transporters, allowing excess glucose to be taken from the blood and stored in the liver for future use. This uptake of glucose by the liver and other organs for storage restores blood glucose levels to a balanced state. Homeostasis has been achieved. Because blood glucose levels have reached homeostasis, the pancreas will stop secreting insulin. This is just one type of hormone involved in the endocrine system. Remember, glands of the endocrine system send messages to the body in a similar manner. A gland senses a change in the body and secretes a hormone. Hormones travel through the blood. Hormones are receptor specific. A hormone signal is amplified. And finally, hormones are regulated by feedback, many times negative feedback.
All right, so now let's dive in a little bit deeper and talk about the different glands. There are 7 major endocrine glands, each with a different function. So I've listed them out here, and I think this is a really helpful diagram to show you where each one is located in the body. I'm going to go through each one in a little bit more detail on the next slides, but I like this as sort of a roadmap for you to refer back to. Now, I'm not going to show this video, but I always post my slides, so feel free to take a look by yourself. It's super cheesy. It was definitely made for kids, but it's actually quite informative and gives a good, really easy to understand overview of the different glands in the endocrine system, but also where they're located. So before we start talking about the glands, I just want to quickly touch on the hypothalamus, which plays a significant role in the endocrine system. So as the video noted, the hypothalamus is responsible for maintaining your body's inner balance or homeostasis. To do this, the hypothalamus helps stimulate or inhibit many of your body's key processes, including heart rate and blood pressure, body temperature, fluid and electrolyte balance, including thirst, appetite and body weight, and sleep cycles. You can think of the hypothalamus as the link between the endocrine system and the nervous system, sort of a bridge between the two. What it does is it produces those releasing and inhibiting hormones, which stop and start the production of hormones throughout the body, like that thermostat analogy. The hypothalamus is located below the thalamus, hence the name, which is a part of the brain that relays sensory information. It's located above the pituitary gland and above the brainstem. It's about the size of an almond, so it's actually quite small. And is highly involved in pituitary gland function. So when the hypothalamus receives a signal from the nervous system, it secretes a substance known as neurohormones that stop and start the secretion of pituitary hormones. The pituitary gland is only about 1/3 of an inch in diameter. It's about the size of a pea and is located at the base of the brain. It's known as a master gland, or the brain of the endocrine system, because it regulates all the other glands. And it secretes growth hormone. In other words, the hormones from the pituitary gland control other parts of the endocrine system, namely the thyroid, the adrenal glands, and the sexual glands, the ovaries and the testes. But it doesn't entirely run the show. In many cases, the hypothalamus signals the pituitary gland to stimulate or inhibit hormone production, like we talked about earlier. Essentially, the pituitary acts after the hypothalamus prompts it. So what happens is the hypothalamus sends a signal to the pituitary gland to release or inhibit hormone production. Now, the pituitary gland has 2 parts, the anterior lobe and the posterior lobe, that have very separate functions. The anterior lobe produces and releases hormones. The posterior lobe doesn't produce hormones per se. That's done by nerve cells in the hypothalamus, but it does help to release them into circulation. The hormones of the pituitary gland send signals to other endocrine glands to stimulate or inhibit their own hormone production. For example, the anterior pituitary lobe will release adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH, to stimulate cortisol production in the adrenal glands when you're stressed out. The anterior lobe releases hormones upon receiving, releasing, or inhibiting hormones from the hypothalamus. These hypothalamic hormones tell the anterior lobe whether to release more of a specific hormone or to stop production of the hormone, like the thermostat. The pituitary gland is also responsible for manufacturing the hormone oxytocin, which has been suggested to be a key player in many things such as interpersonal trust. It's also responsible for a number of reproductive functions, such as aiding milk flow in nursing mothers. The thyroid's main role in the endocrine system is to regulate your metabolism. This is your body's ability to break down food and convert it to energy. Food is essentially what fuels our bodies, and each of our bodies is going to use up the fuel at different rates. So you'll often hear about some people having a fast metabolism or having a slow metabolism. The pituitary gland and the hypothalamus both control the thyroid. When thyroid hormones drop too low, the hypothalamus secretes hormones which alert the pituitary to produce thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. The thyroid then responds to this chain of events by producing even more hormones. Derived from the Greek word meaning shield, the thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland located in front of the windpipe and just below the larynx, or the Adam's apple, in the neck. It's comprised of two halves, known as lobes, which are attached by a band of thyroid tissue. The thyroid is super small. It normally weighs less than 1 ounce. It produces two main hormones, T3 and T4. So a thyroid that's functioning normally produces approximately 80% T4 and 20% T3. T3 is actually the stronger of the pair, which explains why there's less of it. Thyroid disorders are pretty common. They include things like goiters, hypothyroidism. The thyroid keeps your metabolism under control through the action of the hormones, which it makes from extracting iodine from the blood and incorporating it into the hormones. Thyroid cells are unique in that they are highly specialized to absorb and use iodine. Every other cell depends on the thyroid in order to help manage the metabolism. The thymus is located in the upper anterior, or front, part of your chest, directly behind your sternum and between your lungs. This gland will not function throughout a full lifetime, but while it's active, its job is to help the body protect against autoimmunity, which occurs when the immune system turns on itself. So the thymus plays a vital role in the lymphatic system, your body's defense network, as well as the endocrine system. Before birth and throughout childhood, the thymus is instrumental in the production and maturation of T lymphocytes, or T cells. They're a specific type of white blood cell that protect the body from certain threats, such as viruses or infections. The thymus produces and secretes thymosin, a hormone necessary for T cell development and production. The thymus is special in that, unlike most organs, it's at its largest during childhood. Once you reach puberty, it starts to shrink and become replaced by fat. By age 75, the thymus is little more than fatty tissue. But fortunately, the thymus produces all of your T cells by the time you reach puberty. The hormone of the thymus is called thymosin, which stimulates the development of those T cells. Throughout your childhood years, white blood cells called lymphocytes pass through the thymus, where they're transformed into T cells. Once T cells have fully matured in the thymus, they migrate to the lymph nodes, which are groups of immune system cells throughout the body, and there they help to aid the immune system in fighting disease. However, some lymphocytes, regardless of if they reside in the lymph nodes or the thymus, can develop into cancer, such as Hodgkin's disease and non-Hodgkin lymphomas. When you think of the adrenal glands, which are also known as supraadrenal glands, stress might come to mind. And rightfully so. The adrenal glands are arguably best known for secreting the hormone adrenaline, which rapidly prepares your body to spring into action in a stressful situation. But the adrenal glands contribute to your health even at times when your body isn't under extreme stress. In fact, they release hormones that are essential for you to live. The adrenal glands are two triangular-shaped organs that measure about 1.5 inches in height and 3 inches in length. They're located on top of each kidney. And their names directly relate to their location. So ad means near or at, and renus means kidneys. Each adrenal gland is comprised of two distinct structures. The outer part of the adrenal glands is called the adrenal cortex. The inner region is known as the adrenal medulla. The adrenal cortex produces hormones that are vital for life, such as cortisol, which helps regulate metabolism and helps your body respond to stress, and aldosterone, which helps control blood pressure. The adrenal medulla, so the inner part of the gland, produces non-essential hormones, which means you don't need them to live, such as adrenaline. The adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla have different functions. One of the main distinctions is that the hormones released by the adrenal cortex are necessary. Those secreted by the adrenal medulla are not necessary. You do not need them to live. The adrenal cortex produces hormones like hydrocortisone, corticosterone, and aldosterone. Hydrocortisone is more commonly known as cortisol. It regulates how the body converts fats, proteins, and carbohydrates to energy. It also helps to regulate blood pressure and cardiovascular function. Corticosterone works with hydrocortisone to regulate immune response and suppress inflammatory responses. And aldosterone maintains the right balance of salt and water in your body while helping to control blood pressure. There's actually a third class of hormones released by the adrenal cortex known as sex hormones. The adrenal cortex releases small amounts of these sex hormones, but their impact is usually overshadowed by their greater amounts of hormones that are released by the ovaries or testes, which we'll talk about next. Unlike the adrenal cortex, the adrenal medulla doesn't perform any vital functions. But that doesn't mean it's useless. The hormones of the adrenal medulla are released after the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated, which also occurs when you're stressed. As such, the adrenal medulla helps you deal with physical and emotional stress, so that flight or fight response that we talked about earlier. This is a process initiated by the sympathetic nervous system when your body encounters a threatening situation. And the hormones of the adrenal medulla help to contribute to this response. The hormones secreted by the adrenal medulla are epinephrine and norepinephrine. Epinephrine is more commonly known as adrenaline. This hormone rapidly responds to stress by increasing your heart rate and rushing blood to the muscles and brains. It also spikes your blood sugar level by helping to convert glycogen into glucose. Norepinephrine works with epinephrine in responding to stress. It can also cause vasoconstriction, or the narrowing of blood vessels, which results in high blood pressure. The testes produce the male sex hormone testosterone, while the ovaries produce the female hormone estrogen. The ovaries are oval-shaped. They're about the size of a large grape and are located on opposite ends of the pelvic wall on either side of the uterus. They're each attached to the fimbria, which is a tissue that connects the ovaries to the fallopian tube. They're a pair of ova-producing organs, which means they produce eggs, and they maintain the health of the female reproductive system. The ovaries, like their male counterpart, the testes, are known as gonads. This simply means that they are the primary reproductive organs. In addition to their role in producing ova, the ovaries have the distinction of being an endocrine gland because they secrete hormones, primarily estrogen and progesterone, which are vital to normal reproductive development and fertility. So as I said, the ovaries produce and release two groups of sex hormones, progesterone and estrogen. Estrogen is instrumental in breast development, fat distribution in the hips, legs, and breasts, and the development of reproductive organs. Progesterone and estrogen are necessary to prepare the uterus for menstruation, and their release is triggered by the hypothalamus. Once a female reaches puberty, the ovaries will release a single egg each month, typically on an alternating schedule. This is called ovulation. The hypothalamus then sends a signal to the pituitary gland to release gonadotropic substances, such as follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. These hormones are essential to normal reproductive function, including regulation of the menstrual cycle. The testes are twin oval-shaped organs about the size of a large grape. They're located within the scrotum, which is the loose pouch of skin that hangs outside the body behind the penis. While this location makes the testes vulnerable to injury because they're not shielded by any muscles or bones, what it does is provides a cooler temperature, which is necessary for healthy sperm production. In addition to their role in the male reproductive system, the testes also have the distinction of being an endocrine gland because they secrete testosterone, a hormone that's vital to the normal development of male physical characteristics. Testosterone is the primary androgen, which is the term for any substance that stimulates or maintains masculine development. During puberty, testosterone is involved in many of the processes that transition a boy into manhood, including the healthy development of the male sex organs, growth of facial and body hair, lowering of the voice, and the growth of the Adam's apple, among other things. The hypothalamus and pituitary gland control how much testosterone is produced and secreted. So what happens is the hypothalamus sends a signal to the pituitary gland to release the gonadotropic substances, such as follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And then luteinizing hormone stimulates testosterone production. If too much testosterone is produced, the hypothalamus will send an alert to the pituitary gland to make less luteinizing hormone, which will then tell the testes to decrease testosterone levels. So it's all sort of a cycle of different parts in your body talking to one another. The pancreas is a 6-inch long flattened gland that lies deep within the abdomen, between the stomach and the spine. It's connected to the duodenum, which is part of the small intestine. The pancreas belongs to both the endocrine and digestive systems, with most of its cells, in fact more than 90% of them, working on the digestive side. But the pancreas performs the vital duty of producing hormones, most notably insulin, to maintain the balance of blood glucose and salt. The pancreas is unique in that it is both an endocrine and exocrine gland. So in other words, it has the dual function of secreting hormones, secreting hormones into blood, which is the endocrine system, and secreting enzymes through ducts, which is the exocrine system. Without this balance, your body becomes susceptible to some serious complications, such as diabetes. Only about 5% of the pancreas is comprised of endocrine cells. These cells are clustered in groups within the pancreas, and they look like little islands when examined under a microscope. The production of pancreatic hormones, including insulin, gastrin, and glucagon, play an important role in maintaining the sugar and salt balance in our bodies. Insulin regulates blood glucose by allowing many of your body's cells to absorb and use glucose. In turn, this drops the blood glucose levels. Gastrin aids digestion by stimulating certain cells in the stomach to produce acid. And glucagon helps insulin maintain normal blood glucose by working in the opposite way of insulin, actually. It stimulates your cells to release glucose, raising your blood glucose levels. For being such a tiny structure, the pineal gland has a colorful and misunderstood history. It's considered a somewhat mysterious organ as its function was discovered last out of all the endocrine glands. It was once dubbed the third eye, which originated for many reasons, ranging from its location deep in the center of the brain to its connection to light. The French philosopher and mathematician René Descartes was fascinated with the pineal gland. He regarded it as the principal seat of the soul and the place in which all our thoughts are formed. His observations have since been widely rejected. While researchers are still learning about the full purpose of the pineal gland, they believe that it most likely concerns melatonin, the only hormone that the gland is known to produce and release. The quiz code for this week is WORLD, all lowercase. Located near the center of the brain, the pineal gland is a very small organ shaped like a pine cone. That's actually where it gets its name. It's reddish-gray and about 1/3 of an inch long. Pineal cells and neuroglial cells, which support the pineal cells, mostly comprise the gland. So the gland secretes a single hormone, as I said, melatonin, and its secretion is actually dictated by light, making it pretty rare among the endocrine system. Researchers have determined that melatonin has two primary functions in humans: to help control your circadian or biological rhythm, and to help regulate certain reproductive hormones. So that wraps up our conversation about the endocrine system. Up next, we're going to talk about mapping the mind, or different ways that we can study the brain.